patch update, certain heroes have definitely taken a hit. Changes to items have made it a little bit more difficult to go for heroes that would commonly be considered solid solutions to him. Even Joy isn't quite reaching the same levels of success as before. Speaking of, Joy going to be the first pick instantly for the homeboys on the blue side for the draft of game number 1.
This is going to be quite a power pick, considering that you get the Joy is so almost a must, and in the hands of Amao you can always rely on him, right? Like there's no way he's gonna get Fanny anyway, so might as well take that Joy. But of course you also got comfort picks for EVO's Holy. The Granger has sort of been that big staple for MPL ID over Raw. Now that Bruno is nerfed, Granger kind of shoots up in that priority a bit more. Alongside the Matilda, plenty of mobility, ways to get away from the Joy when needed with the Guiding Wind, but Homeboys wants to chase them down with the Irithel.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what EVO's Holy have gone for here, because by picking up the Matilda, they are basically telling homeboys that they intend to turn pick Alpha, right? And that's a very interesting choice as well, considering Suyo is still left in the pool, completely open, a hero with 80% win rate from day 1. May not get to see the light of day here unless EVO's decides to go for the Suyo here instead, not really focusing on the Alpha Matilda combination. Irithel going to be a very solid counter towards the Granger. We saw a lot of it in day 1. And the Phobius as well, just a very universal EXP lane matchup. But oh!
Alright, so
that's
they picked
interesting.
the Fredrin. This definitely feels like something that they have practiced. I mean, for Albert at least, right? This Fredrin pick, we've seen it a few times in the BTK. We've seen that played by TLID. We've seen that played by Team Spirit. You know, kind of varying between the jungle and the XP lane. But I think Susujin and Mobazane were the two players, at least close to the end of last year, that really made this Fredrin pop. And this definitely does kind of bring us back in time a little bit, where Fredrin is going to be the one that is going to be soaking up the damage, but you do have some decent artillery shots from this Granger from long range.
Yeah, Fredrin is a hero that definitely isn't quite as strong as his peak day, but still a very solid option, and basically the most solid option if you want to go for a tank jungle. He's going to be enabled quite heavily with the Matilda to make up for that reduced durability compared to the past where tanks were just unkillable, but he's also a very good solution towards the Joy because it's going to be hard to invade him, and if you happen to jump in with the electrifying beats at the wrong time, energy eruption is very spammable and a very easy way of just popping Joy out of her momentum.
Absolutely. And even going into the second phase, we're seeing, you know, Khalid, CC ban out. One hero that you always have to pay attention to when you fight against Izanami is that Valentina, right? It's one of his signature. It feels like every time Valentina is up, it's defaulted into Izanami's hands. And there are some decent spells from EVO's Holy, of course, certainly Ego being the first one, but we've also seen some creative approaches with the Valentina. With that Fredrin, we see Super Friends do that in the M6 finals, where you can sort of steal energy eruption. But this Angela ban definitely is homework done by EVO's Holy. We saw that Angela Joy yesterday, and EVO's Holy don't want that today.
Angela Joy and Angela Irithel are both very powerful combinations, and is something that Izanami has played in the past. He is willing to fulfill more of a utility role in the mid lane, so EVO's Holy have definitely done their homework like you said. Something that I think homeboys may have to worry about just slightly is that with this particular combo that EVOs have right now, the Sicilian mid lane is a genuine possibility, since Fredrin will already be a very solid front line for them to play around, and they just go for a straight up backline artillery sort of gameplay. It's a bit risky against a Joy, but totally possible, and yeah, they're totally going for it.
Yeah, caught it. So it's the Sicilian, which, I mean, for EVO's Holy, they not only have very long-range artillery, long-range damage, right? But you also have this scaling that basically goes infinity and beyond with the Sicilian. Though I would say, because of the Matilda, it's to a certain degree kind of negates what the Irithel and Joy can do, right? They can just chase down the Sicilian and the Granger, but with the Matilda and the Fredrin supplementing that push and pull, homeboys, they will now need to find a way to kind of start these fights. There's no show. I was thinking something like a Tigro, but that Guinevere role is gonna show up.
Guinevere is actually a very good way of handling Fredrin because he's going to be pretty slow, always in the front line, and right now is the only front line for Evo's Holy. So Guinevere loves these situations where there's just that one big frontline target where you can CC in every single fight. We also see the Farsa coming out, so that helps handle the backline artillery of Evos a little bit because the feathered airstrike will be able to reach them and zone them away from the battlefield. So I do actually quite like Homeboys' complete lineup here. Let's see what Evos goes for. The EXP lane going to be their last pick.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of the catch and kill comp so far, at least with this Guinevere. Just big single target control, like you said, right? It's going to force Purifies from Evo's Holy. You have 3 heroes that can take the Purify. The last one is going to be the Edith. Very standard in that XP lane, solid into the Phoveus, clears way fast, and generally just gives you that extra layer of damage when you need it.
In fact, Evo's Holy have a lot of built-in damage overall. We know Ranger and Cecilion are both going to scale up to be late-game monsters, but Edith actually provides a good deal of DPS into the mid to late game as well. Once you've got a couple items in that primal wrap, DPS is pretty legit. Homeboys have a lot of ways of entering and exiting the team fight, but they're more engage heavy. So Evos will want to play more of a kiting style engagement and initiation to control the team fights with Matilda and then just overpower them by outlasting them.
So comes down to how Escalera and Gojes can just kind of set up the premises for the rest of Homeboys to jump Evo's Holy. Again, that trying to facilitate and play around this Matilda is going to be a challenge that they need to solve as we hop into game number 1. Homeboys finding themselves on blue side, and of course we got Evo's Holy on red.
Two teams with much to prove, with new rosters that have not yet truly seen the weight of the international stage. Now about to duel it out on the Land of Dawn with new faces to fill out their rosters. I'm very excited to see which one is going to come out on top here. Looking at the overall emblems. Ooh, Impure Rage on the Granger. So going for a very poke-heavy style on Evo's Holy, along with the War Cry for Edith. So they're definitely intending that scaling up into that mid to late game.
Yeah, and even for Albert, understanding that he is the primary and only frontline, he went for the Brave Smite instead of sort of what we saw with Concussive Blast in recent times. So you get that extra sustain in these team fights to consistently stick onto Homeboys. I'll say even to a certain degree, if you catch the Phoveus, he's gonna find it pretty tough to get away from you, right? You just stick onto him like glue. And speaking of the Phoveus, Gojes, he's going to be playing underneath the turret for now. Erlan getting ganked by Escalera, but able to get away.
It's gonna be a bit hard for Homeboys to get easy ganks out as long as Ivan or Ivan's are gonna be on the map somewhere. The Matilda Guiding Wind's always an easy get out of jail free card, even if you're out of position. That's why they just tried to go for the Guinevere here. If you're locked down for too long, then you can't really take it out.
Yeah, an attempted gank on bot side also, but they get the flicker out of Reggie at least. So there's some resources expended from Evo's Holy, with Turtle coming up as well. You see that for Homeboys, they're going to group up as 4. Scalera checking the bushes. It's all about that level 4. Izanami, once you get the feather airstrike, the long range artillery, it's going to facilitate Homeboys in these objective takings as they are on the case. Of course, both Deposit and Ivan's going to show up. Reggie as well with the Primal Wrath, but just late to the party. Turtle goes over to Homeboys. They get the Energy Eruption, taunt everything onto Gojes, who will flicker away. Good re-engage from Escalera. And First Blood going over to Izanami. They find one or more, so that's 2 kills for Homeboys.
Yeah, maybe a little bit aggressive by Evos there. They thought they could pick up Gojes since he did go for Flicker instead of Vengeance on this Phoveus. But Homeboys actually did a very interesting rotation there. They actually pulled Gojes into the mid lane, let him get some of the EXP from the mid wave to hit level 4 sooner, while still leaving the EXP lane so that he can get level 5 as well. They actually decided not to go for the typical like roam mid swap that we see sometimes to get Guinevere to level 4 as soon as possible, and instead funneled it into the Phoveus to make sure that they could group up as 4 on the Turtle ASAP. Very early aggressive style to secure that objective.
The fact that Gojes was able to just draw so much attention, right? Like Evo's Holy had the idea, we give the objective away, but we are going to try and pick off targets. Not the case. They will try again, this time to Escalera, who was able to spatial migration out of the way. Albert barely sticking onto him. Princess Wrath will miss though thanks to the flicker from Escalera. So Evo's Holy's second attempt on the kill finds no one.
I do like that Evos is trying to still play somewhat active on the map. You would normally expect with a lineup like this, Cecilion and Granger, you're not really going to try and do too much, but Matilda and Fredrin opens up a lot of space for them as long as Reggie can keep Goges in lane. And because of that, if they're able to get kills, assists onto Deposit or Erlan, will really boost them into that mid game. The goal for Evos right now is to make the early game go by as fast as possible by just snowballing itemization onto their cores to not give Homeboys as much of a window to play for.
Second turtle be up on the top side also. I mean, Evo's Holy didn't really lose too much. It's not even a sizable goal lead for Homeboys yet, but just like the first turtle, they're gonna be in the right spot at the right time before Evo's Holy was in position. And that attempt on the Escalera tries to mitigate the crowd control with the ultimate, does it just in time. Izanami with the feather airstrike to support him, but still, Escalera ends up going down. So Evo's Holy, you started to see that durability with Albert and Ivan. Now they will get control of the turtle.
It was a good attempt there, Escalera even using the Violet Requiem just to avoid the CC, but it's too much damage from Evos with all 5 members still strong.
But Gojes, he's not gonna care. That's a double kill for this man already. Izanami cashes in as he cancels that recall to pick up the third. Evo's Holy once more shut down at the turtle.
Ordinarily, if your roamer is gone and you're still 5-man strong, you should have the advantage over the turtle, but there's a reason why Evos wants to accelerate early game as much as possible, because their lineup is just not that good at straight up 5v5ing. And the Phobius is still a very big problem since they don't have enough burst damage to just remove him from the equation. That's what allows him to really disrupt their ranks, affect their positioning, and actually output a lot of damage. That's gonna be a pretty strong early game lead for Homeboys right now, as they are 5 kills to 1 and a 2k gold advantage in 5 minutes.
They lost the top, and Homeboys even got the top tier 1 too. And we kind of discussed about the power, the damage that Evo's Holy had, and you did point out that they do have some substantial damage even in the early game. But so far, I mean, has that really changed? Because Homeboys, they've been winning these fights where it felt like Evo's Holy should have landed a bigger blow.
This damage is pretty substantial in the early game, but a lot of it is actually built into Reggie on the Edith. And right now, Reggie is actually being stuck on housekeeping a lot because Homeboys are actually doing a good job with macro as well, so that he's not able to join the fights or initiate as easily. Otherwise, Evos are pretty good at extended team fights. They stay alive by having Fredrin in the front line, topped up with shields from Matilda, and then for Erlan and Deposit to just keep whittling them down from behind. But Homeboys are taking the fight so quickly that they're not able to achieve this condition. Thus, the team fights so far have all been going in Homeboys' favor.
The glowing one for Izanami online. We got the Haas Claw done very early for Soul. So these item power timings are basically, I would say, fast-tracked to a certain extent for Homeboys. And even in the XP lane case, Reggie has already died 2 times, whereas Gojes, with 100% kill participation up to this point, 2 kills and 3 assists.
The Phobius is a terror. There is a reason why this hero still remains as a very popular pick that many teams are willing to blind pick without knowing their EXP lane opponent. It just works so well into most team fights. It's difficult to remove. If you pair it up with Vengeance, it just becomes even more impossible. But Gojes already knew that Evos wouldn't have that much early game damage to deal with this time, so going for the Flicker as a way of setting up with the Dark Wave actually ends up being much more effective overall. And positioning from Homeboys is clean. They know they have map control. That's going to be another turtle going to A-Mall.
So all 3 turtles for the Homeboys. Evo's Holy, they want to defend this mid as much as they can, and so far I think they are trying to play together as a 5-man unit, just like how the comp is intended to be. But I think in Homeboy's position with this lead that they have, they really are not in too much of a rush. They're still getting the map priority. They're still allowing Soul to have this free top side thanks to Escalera and Gojes basically blocking off crucial entry points.
Yeah, Evo's Holy is playing a pretty honest front-to-back style. It's very classic lineup that works very well once you get into the mid to late game. But Homeboys have accelerated the early game quite a bit here in terms of snowball for themselves. And the way that they're approaching the team fights is making sure that Evos cannot actually take advantage of their formation. Gorgeous is always in there causing chaos. And then the Feathered Airstrike, this Persada, very good final pick for the homeboys to make sure that even the backliners cannot artillery fire.
Speaking of that, Escalera will be chunked down to basically critical health. They will stick onto Gorgeous, and this time Gorgeous will have to flicker. Izanami with support fire with the Feather Airstrike. Homeboys manages a disengage once more, and EVO's Holy, they've been trying to really make these moves as a 5-man unit, but so far all they were getting have been flickers.
I would say that EVO's Holy still has a lineup that is fully capable of taking over the game in the later stages, as long as they don't fall too behind in gold. But they have kind of reached that point at this stage, because homeboys have already gotten a 4k gold advantage. So EVOs will actually have to delay this quite far. The consolation is that they actually still have a lot of their towers standing, so that gives them a lot more time to work with. Homeboys actually needs to try and siege down more structures to reduce the amount of space on the map that EVOs have to farm. Otherwise, they actually risk a late game Sicilian Granger combo.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing the damage. Escalera, 2-man knockout into a Violent Requiem. They are just controlled for days on end. Reggie flickers to safety, but still they end up losing Deposit and Albert in the process. At the cost of Amal though, who did dive a bit too deep. Homeboys finds 2 at the cost of 1.
Yeah, the angle was a little bit disadvantageous for Aval because the rest of the homeboys were on the left side and he had to dive the right side to find the squishies, which were already retreating. But still, an incredible initiation by Escalera onto the 2 frontliners of EVOs. Normally, just catching Albert would have been good enough, but they found the Reggie on Edith as well. So EVOs just had to immediately back off. I do feel like Aval could have delayed the entry a little bit more just to gauge the situation, but still, definitely a win for homeboys.
They were able to kill off Deposit, I think, in the process. Force out the flicker from Reggie, but EVO's Holy still ends up denying any sort of a Lord take thanks to the absence of Amal as well. So this fight, there's no extra gold for homeboys. There's no extension of their lead for now. I think we might be locked into a pretty extended Lord dance now that there's a Fredrin on the EVO's Holy side.
Yeah, Lord dances are actually going to start going in favor of EVOs as we jump into the mid game, because a front-to-back formation is a very safe way of taking space around the riverside. And Amal, as the jungler, also needs to be the backline diver, which means that his positioning needs to be a little bit more cautious, right? Because of that, homeboys, despite having a 4k gold lead, cannot very safely blitz the Lord down.
And they still get the Lord despite Albert being 4 levels behind. Like, they lost Reggie, but they got the objective that they were coming for. So that's another gold swing in the favor of EVO's Holy. Now is to see if they can start ballooning it. Homeboy's really dropping the ball there. Amal was 4 levels ahead of Albert and still lost the Lord.
And that's literally what I was talking about, right? Amal's positioning is actually a little bit difficult in Lord takes, whereas Albert, even though he is many levels behind, is on a Fredrin. That is the luxury that is afforded to you when you are playing a tank jungle. You have one role, stand in front and ready the objectives. You don't really have to do too much else. Because of that, EVOs can just play a very default, very traditional, very safe, but very reliable formation. And that allows them to very easily contest the Lord unless homeboys is able to mess with their backline before the fight starts.
Yeah, you can see them, they force homeboys away and Albert just walked up for it. And Erlan will get this top tier 2, and how the tables have turned. Homeboys slowly losing whatever lead that they've garnered for themselves in the first phase of the game, the early phase of the game. Escalera is gonna find his target, but they're gonna start gunning him down. Reggie shows up. Violent Requiem will not save him. Escalera gets picked off. EVO's Holy continues to bulldoze homeboys with the lead they have.
Straight up way too desperate from Escalera there. Missed the spatial migration and then tried to chase when Erlan had already gone out of the Feathered Airstrike range. There was no reason to do that and got punished for it. This is always the risk of... Oh, hold on.
And Gorgeous, he's gonna get caught, forced into the deep ends of EVO's Holy's backline. Amal tries to go for Ivan, cannot get him. Feather Airstrike shows up, Gorgeous continues to chase, but the damage from EVO's Holy is starting to hurt. Reggie pops the Primal Wrath and Izanami has to fall back once more. Homeboys could not get anything done.
Homeboys definitely have the harder comp to play now that we've reached this stage of the game. They have to separate Evos wholly, while Evos, they can just go for the 5-man death ball. And their disengage is very good as well, with a 2-man front line, as well as a Matilda to make sure that less mobile heroes like Deficit are going to be able to get out and reposition safely. Homeboys are reaching the end of their timer. There's a reason why I said they needed to take more towers early. They gave Evos too much space to play with, allowed them to position favorably for objectives that they reasonably should not have been able to contest. And now all of that is biting them in the butt.
It's going to be quite a uphill battle right now for the Homeboys. Is there, so the way to come back is somehow you gotta get aim out to the backline, kill off both Deposit and Erlan in the best case scenario. But how do you achieve that to begin with?
The ideal is actually right now play the map. Have Soul Split pushing somewhere on the opposite side of the Lord, preferably, because Evos needs all 5 people together to contest objectives. So if you can pull even 1 or 2 people away, Homeboys just wins the fight. Like straight up, no contest. Evos has to be a 5-man, and that is what they're going to try to play for. Homeboys is not trying to do that. They're still trying to contest them in their own game, and I don't really think they're going to win out on that unless they get really, really good dives.
And even Escalera, he did use the conceal, and that was spotted out. There is a slow push setting up on the bottom side if Homeboys could kind of drag this out long enough, which seems to be the case, right? Like Gojas and Albert, they are just poking their heads out every now and then. So Homeboys eventually will have that big wave that Evos Holy needs to deal with, but that window feels very, very small, and really comes down to if Evos Holy would deal with it, you know, like right now, or are they going to stick around, risk losing that turret to get this Lord?
I really do think that you send Soul to the bot lane, have him threaten, even if Evos tries to stay to contest the Lord, you just use the feathered airstrike to zone them away from time to time, and keep like Escalera somewhere in between the scout when Evos are trying to rotate over to deal with him. Looks like they're just letting the minion wave do it instead, which is perfectly fine, but maybe lacks a bit of the pressure. Instead, they do go for the top lane split push, which ends up getting them 2 free tier 2s. So somehow, they still do achieve like a pretty good trade without really doing anything.
Yeah, this is the best case scenario. Like again, the wave is still building up bottom side. If no one from Evos Holy goes back, well now they do. That was
the moment you see Matilda, you should engage.
Yeah, I think you just go.
You just go now, yeah.
On the Reggie, he's gonna be stunned up for days. Reggie Flicker still gets clipped by the heavy crossbow. He's gonna fall, so Evos Holy down 1 man. Lord is going to be the enemy of all of them. Escalera, he's taking aggro, but he's taking plenty of damage. So another reset of the Lord. Albert refuses to give up possession. I guess there's going to be no cigar for any of them. An attempted invade. Circling Eagle. Docks on the 2. Deposit can't catch them, but Amao, he's going to show up to the bottom side. Backline, Erlan and Deposit gets away. So tries to run them down. Gets hit by the bad impact. Ivan and Albert do fall, but Evos Holy was able to get rid of Soul.
There's still a bit of unfortunate disconnect from the Homeboys there. If even 1 extra person went with Soul into the back line, I feel like he could have survived that and made the Lord take a lot easier. But it still achieves what the Homeboys were going for, which is to remove Albert and get the Lord. In fact, I feel like Evos made a mistake there. There was no reason to engage in that situation. The Circling Eagle knockup was good, but then they pulled Albert in like completely out of reach from the rest of the team against the Homeboys who want them to split up when you don't have your secondary front line. I don't know why Evos decided that was a good idea.
Yeah, the Amao almost just popped Deposit and Erlan. And not for the flicker side of Homeboys. If we head back into the game, we're about to hit critical mass for both sides if we haven't yet, right? Both teams approaching the 50k total net worth mark. We're 17 and a half minutes into this game now.
We've been saying up until now that Homeboys has the advantage in the game right now, but we have to remember Erlan is 4-0 on this Granger, right? And Deficit has only died once as well, so the Sicilian is actually farming pretty well. Once it comes to the base defense, I'm actually worried that Homeboys won't be able to find an opening to end the game, and then we're just gonna end up in the long phase where the artillery just whittles from behind. And well, let's see what happens.
I mean, looking at the state of the map, clearly there is no synced up wave, so it's probably one of the easiest defense that Evos Holy had to deal with. Not to mention that they have the artillery, so they just blow up the Lord. They didn't even have to use the retribution for that. So this one last empowered wave is at most going to get them extra chip damage on the inhibitor, but no fallen inhibs for EVO's Holy. They end up losing all tier 2s, but that's basically the best case scenario.
The lack of wave sync is honestly a big miss from the homeboys. That mid-tier 2 should have fallen before the Lord even crashed up top. They were still able to get it in the end, but they should have actually been able to get solid damage onto like the other 2 inhibs and even maybe take the top one if the waves were like in the positions they were meant to be. So we can see that if EVOs are allowed to conglomerate all of their heroes into one lane and fight together, homeboys cannot even get close.
Yeah, we definitely saw that. The wave's still not synced up. I mean, a fresh batch has spawned, but that bottom one is going to have a bit of a build-up. So we'll see if that Remnants, that slow push, is going to allow homeboys to push in. At least if EVO's Holy don't recognize that right now, you would get minor chip damage. But that's going to take a while, right? Because this 5-man unit right now is just so powerful. And homeboys, we can see Escalera poking his head out every now and then, looking for opportunities, but there's just no angle in. You have to wait EVO's Holy to make that bad move, and it is not happening.
Honestly, just look at how rich Erlan is actually. 2k ahead of Soul up until now. Already on full items, has a Winter Crown just in case. The deficit already has Wishing Lantern and Blood Wings as well. I like that homeboys is playing with a little bit more discipline, but I don't feel like they're pushing the envelope fast enough, or at the very least they should have done it earlier in the game. At this point, they really do have to be playing cautious because of the damage potential of EVOs, but if they just pushed it a little bit more earlier, they would not be in this position.
Oh, Escalera will find 2 though as they try to check the bush. The damage from EVO's Holy isn't enough. Amao finds Deposit. That's purified out. Deposit gets out. Ivan saves him as Reiji. He's gonna soak up most of the damage. They come back with Immortality. They lose Amao. The Rhapsody and the Death Sonata from Erlan is gonna look for multiple targets. Escalera comes back to life. Use the conceal to get away. Ivan will bring Deposit to look for him. So in the bush, finds the perfect pick-off onto Deposit. But Erlan has just chased down the backline. Gojas is gone. Now Albert, he's gonna find So. It's 3 against 1. Erlan, he's just gonna use his gun to try and get him. Circling Ego, not enough. So just snipes down Ivan mid-flight. EVO's Holy though still comes out on top.
This is incredibly messy, but yes, you are right. EVO's Holy comes out on top because Albert and Erlan are both still alive, so this Lord definitely goes to them. Like, engage from Escalera was great, but we can see that now Amal actually does have a bit of difficulty taking out the backline because they will always have Ivan there keeping them safe and sound. They are willing to sacrifice Albert and Reggie at this stage to make sure that their main win conditions, the Granger and the Sicilian, will be fine each time. The Winter Crown was used, the Guiding Winds to pull out, and Amal, if he commits too much of the Electrifying Beats timing in the back, is not actually able to escape afterwards, so it just instantly blows up, and homeboys can no longer contest objectives. They have to be so much more cautious now because they let the game prolong to this stage.
Yeah, this reached the stage where EVO's glory, all that stalling, all that hard work is starting to pay off, starting to pay dividends. You see the interest keep kind of piling in. EVO's Holy should be able to at least crack one inhibitor. This bottom one is not going to be defended. Amao shoves up the top side, so the waves won't be synced, but still, Gojas, he is just gone. They just blow him up like that. 1 minute without the Phobias. EVO's Holy continues to take structure. Second inhibitor down mid. Albert will get the Winter Crown. Homeboys will trade one up top though. The inhibitors pushed down by the mid wave, but EVO's Holy cares not about the inhibitors, but about the Crystal of Homeboys by Escalera. Escalera goes down. Monster kill for Erlan, who is 6-0, and EVO's Holy wastes out the tie. No minion wave, but the fresh one's coming in. So goes down. Izanami will not be able to defend the base. Even with the Winter Crown, Erlan shuts them down. He is legendary, and a triple kill to grant EVO's Holy game 1.
EVO's Holy, this is not the first time this team has done this.